Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Emmanuel, and in this video we'll be talking about positioning stuff in CSS. Now there are four main positioning values that we have available. Well, there are actually five, but the fifth one is in its infancy, so we're going to cover that later on. We have fixed, absolute, relative, and static. This is just random order. It doesn't. There's no specific order in which these should be said. So, the static one, the static positioning is how all of your elements are laid out by default. Okay, so right now everything in here is statically positioned. Now that we got the static section out of the way, let's look into fixed. Now I'm going to add a positioning of fixed to the box, to the first box here called fix, which has the background of fuchsia. And now I just refreshed, and it seems like there are only two boxes, but there are actually three. And look what happens when I scroll. Okay, so you can see that the scroll bar is moving, and let me just zoom in as well so we can see it even better. The pink box is going to keep its position at all times on the screen. So you've probably seen this kind of behavior in headers. That's where it's most commonly used, or some of those subscribe buttons that pop up in the bottom right corner. So those have position fixed. So it basically follows the user while he scrolls. And that's the fixed positioning. That was pretty simple, right? Now let's check out relative, and let's see what happens when I add the position relative to the lime green box. So I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to scroll, and absolutely nothing happened. Because the relative positioning is kind of tied to the absolute positioning. And I'm going to take this out for now. And let's save so you can see how this looks. So everything's normal. And now I'm going to add the position of absolute to the blue box. Now let's refresh. And now it looks like we just lost our green box. But we didn't. Now it's just that the absolutely positioned box is over the green box. And when you position an element absolutely, you'll position it well, absolutely. You need some other, you would usually use it in combination with some other properties like top. And if I say top 0 and left is 0, let's see what that does and where does that box jump. I'm going to refresh, and boom, it just jumped at the top of the document. So that's where it jumped, because it's positioned absolutely to the document. And what I meant earlier when I said about the relative positioning being used in combination with absolute, I meant this. If you look at the HTML, we can see that these boxes have a wrapper class, or are wrapped in a div with a class of wrapper, which I gave a height of 2000 just so I can show you the position fixed. But if we add position relative to the wrapper and save and refresh, the blue box just moved at the edge, at the top and left edge of the wrapper div container. So you're basically, when you add position relative to a parent, you're basically forcing the absolutely positioned element to be relative to its parent. In explanation, it just sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but you've already seen how it works. Now if I add 100 pixels to the left, that should make the box go on this side, and that's how you control it with the positioning of absolute. So at all times, and there will be times when you want to use position absolute because relative just doesn't cut it. Don't forget to add the relative position to its parent element, because if you don't, then it's just going to be relative to the other parent, which is the body, or to the main parent, which is the body or the window of the browser. So if I take this out again, the position relative, by the way, in Sublime Text, that's the shortcut for commenting is Control/. So did I save it? No, now I saved it. And if I refresh, it's going to keep the top of 0 and just move 100 from the main window. So that's how you would use it. You would use positioning relative with positioning absolute. Of course, position relative makes your elements float nicer on the page. There are some cases in layouts when you would use positioning relative compared to static, but that's maybe too vast of a topic to cover in this lesson, where I just want to showcase the main positioning values. Now there's another positioning which is extremely experimental, and I've tried out a little bit, but I didn't really understand it completely, and that is position sticky, or for older versions going to be with a prefix of WebKit sticky. I just want you to know that it exists. I still don't understand how it functions exactly, so I will not be covering it in this course. Maybe later, I don't know if it actually makes more sense. But yeah, that was about it. The fixed positioning will keep an element in the same place on the page no matter how much you scroll. Absolute will position your element absolutely compared to its parent element. Relative will help with that. And static is just the default value that you have for every element on your page. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll be talking about borders.